All right, hello, hello, hello. Before we get into this episode with Eddie and Jamie, which it's a great episode, I loved it, had a lot of fun with it. Unfortunately, just a note to add on to the front end, my audio and video, if you're watching, the video is a little bit choppy. If you're listening and watching, or listening or watching, the audio is a little bit choppy as well on my end. Jamie and Eddie, from what I can tell from scrubbing through there quickly, are very, very clear. It is purely my audio for some reason has an issue. I don't know why. It's possibly my internet and utilizing a new platform where I'm trying to transfer the podcast onto a better platform for as far as some of the other aspects of doing a podcast production are concerned. But unfortunately, it didn't seem to hold on my internet the best, which is whereas we've been recording on Zoom this year, the internet and Zoom has a very, very good relationship with the internet, so to speak, and can handle some of the buffering issues better. It seems this new platform didn't handle the buffering issues on my end very well, and as such, there is a little bit of garble to it. You can still understand more or less what I'm getting to most of the way through. You just hear those little pops and things with the garbling of the internet throughout the podcast. When I'm speaking, it's just me. Eddie and Jamie are very, very clear. It's somewhat ironic that I'm the one hosting the call and my internet's the worst. So I do apologize for that, but I do encourage you, keep going with it. It's a great episode, and Eddie and Jamie have a lot of good things to say. Some great stories from Eddie. Love hearing a story from Eddie about his own family that were coaching at Port Adelaide this year. Texting him some criticism about his own takes about Port Adelaide on the podcast, on his own podcast. So there's some great stuff in this episode. Keep listening along. Just an apology up front for my own audio. There's something that I am already trying to figure out as I've listened back to it as I'm editing this tonight. As you can see, what I'm wearing right now is what I'm wearing in the podcast. I'm literally recording this little intro right after recording it, and it sounds good, and I'm doing it on the other platform. So I just need to figure out how to get the internet to transfer and everything to transfer through to this new platform and figure it out. And from there, it'll be smooth sailing. But for now, apologies for my own audio on this episode, but I encourage you. It is a great episode to listen along to. Enjoy it. This is our end of season review. Alrighty, hello and welcome to the CREEDCAST. As always, my name is Dave, and we thank you for joining us. All of you out there that have been listening throughout the season, we really, really appreciate it. It has been a season that has run the gamut of emotions, and unfortunately, we are here on Wednesday, the 3rd of September, to do the end of year season review for the men's side. We never want to be doing reviews on Wednesday, the 3rd of September, but we are where we are, and Port Adelaide's men's season has ended. As always, my intrepid traveller through the ups and downs of Port Adelaide's season this year has been Jamie, and he is on the line tonight. Jamie, good evening. It is September. We are done this year, but you and I are still here to talk about it all.
Hello, everyone. And yes, we're still here, like you said, unfortunately reviewing the season, first week of September. That is the men's season. Obviously, we're still being swept up in the women's season, but this is review time. So, yeah, happy to be here as always. Not happy to be reviewing, but that's what you get. And we've got a nice guest to join us as well.
Yes, very good segueing, and it's always bad when the host says, hey, look, that's a good segue, but I did it anyway. As Jamie said, we have a great guest on, and returning to the show once again, Eddy Cornes from the Eddy Cornes Show on SEN and the Eddy Cornes podcast. Good evening, Eddie. Thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be back despite the circumstances. I'm not super excited to talk about this season, but I'm happy to be here nonetheless.
Yeah,
it's group therapy.
It is, yeah. Jamie's the resident therapist, so yes, he's been doing a lot of work this year, doing overtime, and probably not getting rewarded monetarily as he should be, but he does the job nonetheless. Yes,
if you say that enough, people are actually going to think I am a qualified therapist, which I'm absolutely not. But
I'll put a caveat.
Happy to play the role,
notes.
though.
Yeah. Put a caveat in the show notes for anyone that actually is trying to bill some hours to Jamie. Yes, it has been a rough season. First thing, Eddie, we reviewed the first half and the middle of the year, obviously at the bye week. It had been an interesting year to that point, but to that point, we still had some hope. You did express your thoughts for the second half of the season. I think you said we'd get 2 wins for the rest of the year. We did get more than that, but I do also, with some of the way some of those results went, I can also see why you were so, lower down the rung on optimism.
How many wins did we actually end up with?
I think it was 4 or 5 for the rest of the season.
Wow.
Yeah, 4. What I've got here, I think. So yeah, we won the first couple. 5 actually. Yeah, sorry, I was just counting through my notes there. We won the first couple after the bye, but yeah. You, Eddie, I can see why there was that pessimism there, though. Some of the results in the second half that we'll go through in a moment were pretty rough. How have you just looked at, in an overall general lens before we go through the results, how have you seen this second half of the season?
Probably pretty similar to how I saw the first half. The final game, which we'll touch on, I don't want to spoil all my thoughts on that game. We'll get to that soon. But that did just, calm me down a little bit. Like I was thinking after the Carlton game, this is it. Like we're going to be watching a terrible Port team for the next 5 years. I got just a little bit of an injection of hope after the Gold Coast win. So I'm not feeling as bad as I was at the end of round 23, but it still was a big fail of a season overall. And there's many issues that we're going to dive into on this episode that Port have to address over the off season. And we'll see if they can. It's a huge off season and a lot has to change. Are Port willing to make some moves and maybe hurt a few feelings and see what happens? I'm not sure, but yeah, again, a big failure of a season, and the second half didn't really make me feel much better after a very disappointing first half.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Despite some of those results that we'll talk about and a few of those wins, some of them that we'll go through in a moment, were incredibly rough. Jamie, before we get into the season, those round by round results, we're a week and a half removed from when we reviewed our last game. How are you looking back on the season as a whole at the moment?
Disappointing, but mostly disappointing because of the circumstances that we found ourselves in. We were impeded from the word go. The second half of the season looked like we were going to get over some sort of a hump after the break. And the first month after the bye seemed promising. And then come that Brisbane game, the black cat or the broken mirror or the ladder that we all walked under reared its ugly head again. And the season was basically just a holding pattern for the rest of it until obviously Travis Boak announced that he was going to call time. And then the end of the season had a bit of verve about it outside of that Carlton debacle. But yeah, we were really treading water after the first quarter against Brisbane. And what was that, round 17? So finished the year like a damp squib, but there's obviously caveats to it. Unfortunately, though, we want to see our team win all the time, and we weren't afforded that. So, and obviously we would have liked to at least see Ken off with another finals appearance. I know even that wouldn't have appeased the masses, but just the energy about finals, it seemed fitting. But in the end, we find joy, as you and I did, Dave, in some of the younger players that we got exposed to. That's probably all that we could draw positives out of leading into the end of what was a overall disappointing season.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think we'll start running through. We'll run through this first month of the second half of the season here. So I'll do a little speed run of the results, and we'll talk about this month of the season briefly and grade them once I get through it. So we bounced out of the bye week, and it was GWS in the cold climes of Canberra that we went to face a GWS team that was looking to a finals appearance, and they are in the finals now, and we're certainly looking at that point to try to get themselves into play for a top 4 spot. But they didn't expect Port Adelaide to come up to Canberra and play with what I saw on some Twitter call a Ken masterclass in coaching, which you didn't see too much this year, but we did see it when Port beat GWS 9-12, 66 to GWS's 7-8-50. One of those young fellas that Jamie was just talking about, Christian Ray, he's coming on in the fourth quarter. I think only having a couple of touches, if not just one, but that one was a kicking goal straight through the big sticks and setting off some jubilant celebrations, which was a wonderful moment and gave us a little pep in our step coming out of the bye in round 13 with that win. Round 14, and it was another win at Adelaide Oval. We had the 2 from 2 out of the bye, 14-9-93, defeating Melbourne 9-14-68. In what was a bit of a spiteful contest. I was in my review afterwards, and Max Gawn is a player I usually enjoy, and I do enjoy still, but I was quite dirty on him in the review afterwards, just with some of the spite and fracas we were witnessing on the field, but it was a good fun one to be at. Jamie and I were there, and we enjoyed it there in the Sunday afternoon sun. Keziah Pickett, a little mid-hybrid forward masterclass threatened in the second quarter, but Port were able to contain that and get away with the win. Round 15, and all that hope that we'd had built out of those 2 wins came crashing to a halt in the reverse Amati party. Yes, Joel Amati missed everything on the day, but it didn't matter for Sydney, who kicked 9-17-71, defeating us 7-10-52. It was a game, I don't remember the exact X score, but I think X score had the win. It should have been 40 or 50 points that Sydney should have won by. Instead, it was a 19-point win, entirely due to the fact that Amati couldn't hit the side of a fucking barn door. But alas, what we thought at halftime, maybe that he'd left the door open for us, Port just couldn't come through. And it was quite a disappointing afternoon to be out there at Adelaide Oval, watching Port simply just not show up in the same effort and endeavour that Sydney did on the day. Round 16, and it was another one, a joyous night to be at, 16-14-110, defeating Carlton 8-12-60. It was a night that gave me a lot of hope again. Not the hope in the glass panels of the Adelaide Oval perimeter around Jamie sits, but otherwise it gave me a lot of hope. And actually, we do end this first month of the second half of the season 3-1, which is incredible to think about in isolation when you look at the whole encompassing season that we didn't win that many games. We did have a period of play here of 3-1 to come out of the bye. So 7 wins, 8 losses, sitting in 10th with a pretty paltry percentage of 88.6 after round 16. But I'll go to you, Eddie, first. When you look at that in isolation, it's a sequence of games that actually gives you a lot of hope. But that Sydney one really, I remember Jamie and I being really down for that Sydney one. And I'd be interested to see if you recall how you felt after that one. But that result in of its own just drags me down so much because we looked hopeless on that day, and it kind of was. That's the result that's probably more and a better example of what Port have been in 2025 rather than the other 3.
Yeah, I think if you look at the results in a vacuum, it looks pretty good. Like 3-1 is a good record over a month, especially considering where Port were at in the first half of the season. But when you actually watch those games, I don't think we felt very good coming out of them at all. GWS, the weather was crazy. I reckon if you played that game 100 times, Port win at 50, GWS win at 50. It was just a scrappy, tough watch. And I don't think I felt great about Port Adelaide coming out of that win. Melbourne, similar thing. Like, they were just in disarray. So were we. And it just kind of felt like 2 bad teams just throwing haymakers and seeing what stuck. And again, didn't feel great. Sydney, I agree with you 100%. Like, that was just a rough watch. And it almost felt like Sydney were toying with us. Like, it just Port could get nothing going all day. And then you had to watch Amati just miss and miss and miss. And it almost just like felt like you were just getting stabbed in the gut every time he missed, because you kept getting a little bit of hope, and then they'd just not be able to do anything on the other end. And then Carlton, again, just a team in disarray, and Port got the job done. I actually felt pretty good after that win. There's a lot of Carlton fans at SEN, so rubbing it in felt good, but they got their revenge later in the season. So, yeah, I come away from this period, and I would give it like a 6 out of 10. The results are good. They got the wins in scrappy ways. They fought to the end. I thought the effort was there during that month, which was good, because it didn't felt like that was the case the whole early part of the season. But there were still so many issues, and they were obvious. Like, it wasn't like they couldn't defend at stoppage in the left corner of the ground or something just random. Like, they were obvious issues, and it didn't really look like they were fixing it. They were just finding a way to get the wins anyway. So 6 out of 10 for me for that period of the season.
Jamie, we were there together for a couple of those. How are you feeling about how that period of the season went?
Yeah, I thought it was an opportunity to rebound out of the bye, like I mentioned off the top. And I'm just going through these four games in particular and looking at the teams that we listed. I won't obviously go through each game, but just coming straight out of the bye, you've got Zerk, Thatcher, Radicalia, Bergman, Farrell, Elias, Sin on a backline, Burgoyne, Drew, Mead, Vizentini, Rosie, Butters in the middle, Burne-Jones, Finlayson, Jackson, Rioli, Georgiades, Powell-Pepper, and then on the bench you've got Burton, Boak, Wines, and Joe Richards. So, this was an opportunity to get some mileage or some synergy into what was not our best 23, but getting much more close than it was heading into the bye. Agree with Ed. The games were scrappy in ways. The season hadn't gotten going. It was an opportunity to maybe build into the back half, predicting some very, very hard games to come in the month or 2 months after this. But all you can do is play the opposition in front of you. And we got some gettable opponents at the right time of the year with the troops that we were getting back into the side. It wasn't necessarily about doing it pretty for me. It was just about clocking wins and putting pressure on the 8, which, like you said, apart from percentage, we're at 10th. And if there was going to be a second half, I think we spoke about it in the mid-season run. Usually one side kind of falls off a cliff and one side kind of pushes. Obviously, that didn't end up being us for various reasons, but this month still showed a bit of glimmer of hope. I guess the Sydney one in particular was really quite frustrating. Is not even the right word. It definitely left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths because we probably thought that they were going to respond after we beat them in Sydney earlier that year. And they were also another one of those sides where it was like, okay, if we get the pieces in place, we can make a run in the second half, because they were equally injury affected in the first half. But that was a perfect day.
Was that Gordon's first game back? I think.
I think it was around that. Yeah, first or second game back. Mm-hmm. Perfect conditions. It was a beautiful day. But we kicked off that game in meek fashion. We were timid and didn't want to take it on until I think we got a few cheap goals at the end, or a couple at the end, to make the score look half respectable, on top of the reverse Amati party. Carlton, we were all cock a hoop because it's nice to win by more than a couple of goals, and it's always nice. It's always nice to beat Carlton, especially because we lost to them at home Thursday night fixture last year. And it's always, if you're an SEN listener, particularly on a Monday when Carlton lose, it's like, yeah, it's great entertainment too.
Yeah.
So it's all within context, but
there's also Dan does footy that weekend, so
absolutely. Dan does footy fans also, for the meltdowns. This month of football, I'm probably not as harsh. That's probably obvious though for people who've listened long enough. But in terms of that month, like you said, happy clapper over here. Hinkley sexual. But considering that, Ed on our show mid-season predicting 2 wins, I think a lot of people probably thought it was going to be fairly similar ballpark to that. But to show some signs and getting a team back, I wasn't unhappy. I just had a bad taste in my mouth from that Sydney game in particular. Yeah.
I would, if I was putting mine out there, I'd probably say 7 out of 10. I'll probably, the Sydney one, if we'd gone 4-0 in that period and beaten Sydney as well, you almost go like, depending on the ratio of the wins, you see, at least go 9 out of 10. But the deflating way that the Sydney result hung in the mouth, like you're eating one of those like vomit flavored, every flavored jelly bean things, like that's just how the Sydney one felt, and that's like it made it, that bad taste in the mouth just hung around. And I think you start feeling that when we get into the rest of the season more. And to its point, there was a lot of those signs, like the Melbourne game. It was there to be won for Melbourne at times, where they just kicked themselves out of it a little bit. And if you look at the men's 14-9 to 9-14, it was similar scoring shots. I think the X score might have been a bit closer. And yeah, the GWS one. I think I was impressed with the GWS one because it was a tough win for us, but it still did, to Ed's point, it highlighted some of the issues in the side, just not being able to, be an impressive football side. They were just finding ways to win, which at some point you need to be an impressive football side as well. As we get into the next month of the season, we were not exactly going to look like an impressive football side, though I will say as we get to round 17, a result that both gave me some kind of like pride, but also broke my heart to a million pieces. Brisbane 18-12 defeating Port 14-8, 18-12 120 to 14-8 92. A game that really only had a 7-minute patch that Brisbane kicked about like a quarter of their scoring, I think, or a bit more than that, maybe a third. In the first quarter. Other than that, Port fought valiantly, fought hard. Sam Powell-Pepper put the team on his back, which ultimately led him to getting a season-ending injury in tearing his other ACL. I think that was the point of the season that my heart broke completely, and I realized that there was going to be no hope for the rest of the year. Unfortunately, I just thought that's the straw that breaks the camel's back of already fleeting hopes that we had at that point of making finals. It was a valiant effort, but ultimately we fall to Brisbane, the reigning premiers, by 28 points. In round 18, it was Port against West Coast at Adelaide Oval, and a game that threatened to possibly have fans spilling over the fence. I think after we gave up 6 goals to West Coast in the first quarter, in what was a timid affair, but Port bounced back across the following 3 quarters and ultimately were the better team on the day and won 12-15, 87 to West Coast 9-7, 61. A game highlighted by Jason Horne-Francis taking the absolute piss with a broken foot, and Zach Butters being like his little Robin to Jason Horne-Francis's Batman and deciding to take on half of the West Coast team against the Adelaide Oval fences. It was quite the spicy affair, and one that got a few talking points out of it for the talking heads on radio post-game with the Harley Reid comments and whatnot, but ultimately Port got the chocolates, and Jason Horne-Francis season ended as well, alongside injuries from the Brisbane game. The injury toll was really, really starting to bite. Round 19, and we go down to Tasmania, where it went sideways, and boundary umpires were throwing balls in, and they were heading into the opposite 50. It was crazy down there. Port held in, but ultimately Hawthorn had a 5-goal last quarter and won 13-9-87, defeating our Port Adelaide side 7-7-49. Again, we showed a little bit of pluck, but ultimately it was just like we are just have like one game plan, try to hold on. It was a little bit of defensive stuff, and ultimately Hawthorn found a way to break through despite the conditions. I don't want to get to this one, but I will. Round 20, and our expectations for you were low, but holy fuck. Adelaide 2013 133 defeating our Port Adelaide 5-5-35, and a game that I have no forgiveness for. It was deplorable, a horrible effort in conditions that were similar to the Hawthorn game, wet and wild. As some of those shots, there's some great photos if you go around looking at like good photographer shots from the ground and stills of players sliding through the Adelaide Oval grass, water spilling everywhere. It's not a game that a team ever kick 20 goals 13 and win by 98 points, but alas, Adelaide did, because Port simply didn't show up in the second half. Adelaide are a very, very good football side. I hate to say it, but they are. But Port Adelaide's effort on the day was still quite deplorable and really ended this second period of the second half quite horribly. So we, after round 20, we're 8 wins, 11 losses, sitting in 11th, percentage dropping to 83.2%. I'll go to you first, Eddie, again. Since I have talked to Jamie about these results at 20. The low light of that period is that showdown loss, and I still struggle to comprehend what I witnessed that night. How did that feel to you?
Yeah, the showdown was bad. I mean, it's probably the worst loss of Ken Hinkley's tenure, I reckon. I think it's you could probably throw in some finals. Like the Bulldogs prelim was bad. But at least home and away season wise, I think it's the worst loss of his tenure. I think it's the most points he's ever given up as well. So it was just a disaster from start to end. It started with Bergman kicking the wrong way. and it just kind of set the tone for the whole game. So there's not even really anything you can like. I tried talking about Port on radio the next day, and I was like, there's not really much more you can say than they're just shit. Like there wasn't anything to break down. There was no player that you can kind of point out and say, oh, he played all right. It was just shit from start to end. So the showdown I've just kind of blocked out of my mind from now, and hopefully we'll somehow find a way to get our revenge next season. But that was horrible. The other 3 games, I almost felt better about those games than I did the ones previously in the month before, because the Brisbane game was a really valiant effort, like you said. The West Coast game was frustrating, but, you know, HORNE-FRANCIS was playing great football. He hasn't had a fantastic year, so it was good to see him really get on top of the contest. And I thought our, like, forward line, the Hawthorn game you kind of throw out because the weather was terrible. But, like, 92 points, 87 points, you kind of felt like they were finally starting to get just a little bit of momentum in the season. When you include the Carlton game the week before, they scored 110. So you thought, oh, maybe there's something there, and then the showdown just crushed all my hopes and dreams. So, yeah, that was, let's just pretend that month never happened.
Yeah. I mean, you rated the
But
first
wait,
month. What do you
there's
rate?
more.
I mean, what do you rate that one by comparison to that first month you did?
I would have said 7 out of 10 before the showdown. And
Just for
then the showdown
consistency, we did
brought it to
do
1.
letter gradings in the mid-season.
Oh, did we? Okay, I'll do.
Yes.
As soon as Eddie started doing number grading, I was like, that's fine. And I was just like, that's actually kind of funny as well. So
Nah,
yeah.
completely
a
forgot.
little bit more nuance to a number as well. You can do halves. So it's fine.
What's a
Continue.
6 out of 10 to letter grade? Like,
I think that's a C, isn't it?
okay, so we'll give the first month a C, and then this month will be. I just got out of school, so I should know this, but
Yeah, much fresher than we are.
this month will be an F, not an F minus, but an F.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Jamie, where are you at with that? I know we've reviewed these together, but when I was going through getting my notes and little packages together here for the podcast tonight, writing down that scoreline for the showdown brought back so much PTSD from that night. It was a rough night for you sitting alone watching it as well. And just yeah, how are you feeling about that one a month and a half removed?
The showdown. Oh, I was there. So
Yeah,
PTSD.
right.
Still, yeah. I made the stupid decision after a valiant first showdown of the year to hit up a Crows friend, expecting all of our troops to be back, 3 key defenders on their 3 key forwards, battle it out. But little did we know that, in this Brisbane game, all hell was going to break loose on the injury front, and then we were going to all get the flu going down to Tasmania and have to back it up with a showdown against a red-hot Adelaide Crows outfit. And a crowd that, like I said in that review, ended up being quite vampiric in their thirst for blood, particularly in the last quarter, as the goals were just a training drill. Agree with Eddie's sentiments in regards to Brisbane. That game, I couldn't have been any more frustrated and annoyed and fucked off with that 7-minute period. But considering that Visentini went down, Asava pinged a hammy, SPP snapped his ACL, they by rights could have just put their head down and gave up a 10-plus goal loss. But one of the more surprising aspects of the season was how they fought that game out. And it, you come out of that game, the score probably flatters Brisbane in the end a little bit. Clearly the better side after that initial onslaught of injuries. But you can't do much more than that given the circumstances when you're down to 1 or 2 on the bench at stages. West Coast game was, again, fucking annoying because we just kept handing the ball back in the first quarter and they kept capitalizing. I think, if I remember rightly in our preview, and obviously coming up against West Coast, you're kind of expecting to hit the ground running and expecting a response after that Brisbane game. But it took a while. It took a while to break their back. And we got over the line in the end with some fantastic highlights to finish. And again, the scoreline, I think, flattered Hawthorn in that third week of this month we're talking about. We dug in. How often do you want to say we dug in? But at the end of the day, we just losing games. Like I said off the top, we're treading water in Tasmania, quite literally, and then the week after. Yeah, what a terrible game. And it's interesting in seasons like this. I remember being busy on some of these game days, particularly away days. I went to the cinema with my daughter and that Hawthorn game. That shows just the level of anticipation for some of these games in the back half of the year. You know, you start making plans for other things instead of locking in on game day. But yeah, Hawks, there was some good stuff. We saw more loquacious stuff with Georgiades, Ollie Lord kind of appearing briefly again, holding up, challenging them on a ground that they're quite unbeatable at in recent times, really. And then it got away from us. Some really upsetting umpiring from what I remember on an otherwise deplorable day weather-wise. Yeah. And then back around to the showdown, which flu, injuries, whatever excuse you want to make, 100-point or thereabouts loss is it's never acceptable. And I would agree it was the worst home and away loss under Ken's under his reign.
Yeah. I think it's, especially when it's a showdown, and Ken's last showdown, we're all expecting and hoping some kind of miracle. There was even a storyline around the Host 100 of Australian songs that day, and about 5 minutes before the game kicked off, Never Tear Us Apart finished number one. And, it was you Port fans on Twitter being like, oh, this is a sign. And then like 2 hours later, you're like, oh, it was not at all a sign. So it really was just
immediately when Miles Bergman hit Darcy Fogarty on the tit. That was the sign that it was going. Yeah. That was the sign that it was going the other way, quite literally and metaphorically.
Yeah. I still can't believe that happened. Like I think it was we talked about it on the show. I'd be interested. No thoughts, Eddie? Like I think Jake Saligo post game said like like a lot of players are cognizant of making sure they're going the right way, but it's just like you never actually see it happen. And for it to happen in the opening bounce of the show now, it's just like it's real for me in my disaster planning for my own life. It's real areas of like why is this happening to me stuff. Like Port fans get the worst of everything, and I know every fan base does it, but that was like one of those little things. I just was like, everything happens badly to Port fans. Like
and it was the worst time for it to happen, away from home against the Crows. Like he'll just get the piss taken out of him for the rest of his life from Crows fans for that one stupid mistake. Like I felt bad for Bergman. All the Crows players were getting into him as well, and you there's no comeback for that. Like what do you say? Like you're a fucking idiot. What do you respond to that with? Like so that was
you could probably have a 30 disposal couple of goal game, but if you lose still it's like, well, you kicked the wrong way, fucking idiot.
You're an idiot. So and
he's the nicest guy too, so I don't know if he would have the that bravado to really bite back.
I will say this. Last time I was on this show, I called him the Bradley Beal of the AFL. And that was a very Bradley Beal-esque moment. So I felt a little bit vindicated.
I had forgotten about that, but I'm glad you
just
brought
one moment. His midfield move seemed revolutionary. All aspects outside of that.
Oh yeah, there was a Bradley Beal thing, and we've re-signed him for the 2 years. Yeah. I mean, how did you find a couple of those at least of midfield performances? He obviously had the one in the against the Crows in the first showdown, which we talked about last time. But and we could just go back to that Carlton game quickly. He had a fairly good game in that one as well. Are you intrigued by the Miles Bergman role going into the next 2 years now that we have him for 2 years? Or do you still think Bradley Beal a little bit?
No, I'm still Bradley Beal. Like, do it while we're winning. That would be my, which is, it's obviously so unfair to say that because footy's so different to the NBA where one player is so influential in the NBA where footy, it's not as much such an individual sport. But I would like to see him do it in some bigger games. Like, you know, when you're smashing Carlton, it's a bit of fun to have a good game, especially when their midfield's slow and can't cover the ground like he can. So yeah, that would be my thing. But there was definitely some good moments. And then I'm just going to throw the last month out for Bergman, his last 4 games, because he was injured and he didn't play great. But I'm not going to judge him for that because he was clearly holding an injury, and respect to him for playing. So that's not something Bradley Beal would do. So I guess I'll give him that.
Love that. That's great. Yeah, he did battle through a fair bit there until they decided they finally, shut him down when the season was done. So looking forward to it. It's going to be interesting watching the next 2 years now. We'll get to the list stuff, but once we've finished going through the results. But Bergman signed up for the next 2 years now since the Bradley Beal drive-bys. So to watch in the next couple of years. All right. The last month of the season, and after round 20, we headed down to the Cattery in round 21, and it was not going to be a repeat of our epic win down there in 2024. Oh no! While the effort to start the game may have been a bit better, and we can at least say that they played with a modicum of interest in the game, Geelong were ultimately still too good, beating Port 23-15, 153 to an, I guess, appropriately disastrous 9-11-65. Oishan Mullen tagged Zach Butters to a lowly 10 disposals, which was just kind of summed up the fact that we just didn't have really many horses to go with. And I think Rosie was out of that one, Bergman out of that point. There was a few Geelong people on Twitter saying it's basically a free hit to just throw a tag at Butters because Butters out of the game, they're going to have no problems getting the result. And so it was. Round 22, and so in between round 21 and round 22, we get the news that we all knew would come at some point, but we all somehow hoped would never come, and that was Travis Boak was going to be retiring at season's end. So I added some investment into the last 3 rounds. And round 22 saw an actually very, very good game at Adelaide Oval. Though Fremantle did kick out to a 4-goal lead at quarter time, and we all thought maybe, this is just going to be shithouse again. But it ultimately turned into a very, very good game of football. 13-14-92, Fremantle defeated Ports 13-8-86, and Alex Pearce goal in the last minute, which felt somewhat appropriate considering Jamie and I have been talking about him as one of our favourite opposition players this year, and lo and behold, he comes and beats us on the night. But it was quite a good game to watch. Port show up, and actually, you could make every case that Port could have, if they won the game, they would have deserved the result. Though the stats were still slightly favouring Fremantle, Port turned up and turned a few things around as to what they were doing wrong in earlier parts of the season. Round 23, and we headed over to Marvel for Travis Boak's final game in his native Victoria, and we did not turn up for him. 18-10, 118, Carlton defeated Port 9-10-64. Harry Mackay had a good game, which he hasn't had too many of those this year, and ultimately Port just didn't show up in that. Again, not showing up in the first 10 minutes and giving up 5-6 goals in the first 10 minutes really set the tone. We bounced back a little bit with a few goals here and there, but ultimately Carlton kicked away and got themselves a comfortable win in round 23. But none of that matters when it comes to round 24. The Travis Boak
Mega Bowl, Saturday, 8 o'clock. Flint, Michigan Mega Bowl. Flint, Michigan Mega Bowl. Flint, Michigan Mega Bowl.
Oh, the Travis Boak Mega Bowl. Port 10-11-71. Gold Coast Suns 9-13-67 is the greatest game I've ever been at this year and maybe in my life. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that one out. Eddie, to you first. Oh my God, I don't fucking care about anything else right now, and I've just seen that highlight again. An incredible evening. How did you kind of metabolize that one as it occurred, and then in the aftermath of it? It's just one of the greatest of times.
So lead up to the game gave us no hope. Like, I thought we were going to get smashed. The Carlton game the week before the showdown was bad, but at least there was effort. Like, at least in the first half, you could kind of see the players got up for the game. The Crows were just so much better. It was unfair. The Carlton game, there was no effort. Like, you should just if you want to really see how bad it was, just look at some of the stoppage stuff from Carlton inside 50. The way that some of the mids defended was just mind-boggling. Like, not even just standing next to a player, just completely lost. Terrible, terrible stuff. Like, stuff you learn in under 12s, they just weren't even bothered to do. So I was like, everyone's telling me Boki, Kenny, they're going to get up for it. They don't really care anymore. That's where I was at. Like, I was like, the players don't care.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to get them up about. They're thinking about next year with Kari. They don't really give a shit. And then the first quarter happened, and I was like, hang on, okay, I'm actually, this is interesting. And then it kept going and going and going. I thought we were going to get blown out. Didn't like 3 minutes left. I thought Gold Coast will kick it away here. Like, they'll still manage to win. And it just never happened. And I felt really proud. Like, that was the only game this year where I've come away and thinking like, wow, I'm actually proud to be a Port Adelaide supporter. And just kind of thinking about like what Boki and Kenny have done for the club. They will never, ever, ever get enough credit for basically saving Port Adelaide. Like, club's on the brink of collapse. Boki decides to stay, and Kenny comes in and just turns the whole thing around. They'll never get enough credit for that. So I was so happy that they got that moment walking off the field arm in arm together, and with a crowd that was just unbelievably excited to be there. Like, I was worried that maybe a few would boo Kenny walking off the ground if they lost, especially if they got blown out. And thank God that didn't happen, and they got the reception they deserved when they left. So it was an unbelievable game. The worst part about it was I wasn't there. So that's the first time I've heard Dwayne's call. I was in a studio paneling the game for SEN. So I was hearing Kim Dillon and David Wildy and Bix and Dad scream about it in the box, but I was having to sit there and watch it in a studio on 5-second delay. So it wasn't the best viewing experience, but it didn't matter. Like, just unbelievable. And then the next day, the game was on Friday night, so I talked about it on Sunday. So it was a few days delayed, and I had people text in like, "This isn't a Port show. Stop fucking talking about Port Adelaide." But I was just so proud of that result that I couldn't stop talking about them. So it almost made the whole season worth it.
It was a huge story. Come on.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I spent Crows fans, fuck off. I spent 20 minutes on it. Like, I've talked about you all year. I've tried to ignore Port Adelaide. Like, give me 20 minutes. So it almost made the whole season worth it. Almost. I don't know if I quite got there, but it was a great moment. And again, I was proud to be a Port supporter.
Yeah, it's one of those ones, and Jamie and I talked about it. Like, I love sports for the fact that I mean, obviously we're all in this as fans, and then teams are in it to, like, and Port Adelaide's mantra is we exist to win premierships. But across my life as a sports fan, different results in different sports that I follow, sometimes these individual games, it just means so much. And Travis Boak talked about it after the game, and I think talked about it in the BNF last night as well, just like how much it meant to him, and almost one of his favorite moments to be a part of. Sports is so much more. Yes, it is, at the end of the day, the records are what they are. But in these individual moments, and as fans, if you kind of attack it the right way as a fan, and then as players do as well, you can take real joy and memories out of a moment like this. And Jamie and I went out afterwards. My brother, the dickhead, was there in his Gold Coast jersey. We were all sitting there drinking beers afterwards, went to the casino, had a great night. And I just wasn't expecting that after half of the season, ever expecting to have that kind of night. And I'll remember it forever. And then the fact it was Travis Boak's last game, and you rightly pointed out Travis Boak and Ken, both of them, what they've done for the club, incredible stuff. Jamie, we've talked about this plenty, but have you come down to ground anymore since then, or are you still like in the hyperbolic world that I exist in about the Travis Boak Mega Bowl?
No, seeing that end piece again has just revved me back up. I just want to go watch, I don't know, the whole game, the second half again, after we get off. I messaged Dave, Ed, after the pod, after we recorded the pod and it was out on Spotify and whatnot, because I tend to listen to our material. And I've mentioned before, half for self-indulgence and half for personal critiquing. Yeah. But I didn't know that he was going to put Higher in by Creed. And I said to him that I could literally feel the dopamine secrete from the folds of my brain after hearing that and the end commentary to that game, because it was a symbolic win. It'll go down in the annals of history, or the annals, as Will Ferrell said in that movie. Within our Port bubble, of course. And I said in our review, it'll be a where were you when kind of moment, but only rather than a broader AFL community, just in our much more favourable Port community. It was a fantastic win. Like Ed, you mentioned, coming out of Carlton, where it looked like we just didn't give a shit. We had eyes on Bali flight prices or Europe and getting everyone's visas in order. But it was real one last dance kind of shit heading into it. A team full of nobodies propped up by some genuine superstars and some honest leaders of our club. And they just put it out there. And I said in our review, a gettable Gold Coast who clearly didn't expect us, which is a huge indictment on them, didn't expect us to come with such vigor and intensity. We capitalized. Everyone chipped in their little way across the game. Obviously, we've reviewed it quite recently, and I'm kind of repeating everything that I've said in that review, but it all still stands, and I loved it. I couldn't be more cock a hoop. Like you said, proud to be a Port supporter, and I don't care what anyone says. 10,000, 20,000, 30, 40,000 Port Adelaide fans make more noise than any other club, maybe a couple challenge. I don't care. And like I experienced the TARP era firsthand at Amy Stadium. And my sentiments were the same then, and they're the same now. That atmosphere was fantastic at the ground. And I love the fact that we averaged about 30,000 at home games all year, but that extra 10K rocked up just to see them off. And like you said, the booing for Kenny was a question mark hovering over the game. And not only did Travis Boak get a cheer for every possession, but they showed Ken on the screen a few times throughout the game, and it was completely the opposite. He got a round of cheers anytime he appeared on screen. So it was just a night full of positivity and a great way to sign off on our year and hand over to the Josh Carr era.
I'd almost lost faith in Port fans at some points, like just because that vocal minority that is so anti-Ken got very loud the last few years. Like it almost felt like they were the whole supporter base. That
they were doing a farewell victory lap.
Yeah.
That
night restored my faith in Port supporters. Like I'm back now. I was almost telling people during the year, like I don't care anymore. Like I'm neutral. Like Port is what they are. I hope they win, but I'm not riding or dying with wins or losses anymore. That night pulled me back in. Like that was the Godfather 3 moment for me. I was back, and I can't wait for next season now. And
we love a movie reference.
Yeah, I had to pull one out. Tropic Thunder, underrated, by the way. So underrated.
Yeah. I mean, Godfather 3, Tropic Thunder, yeah.
I meant not Tropic Thunder. I'm thinking of every tropic movie now. But anyway, oh, God, see, this is I've been dropped off now.
Rocked you off balance.
Tropics were very, very underrated as a basketball team.
Flint Tropics.
Oh, fuck me. I can't. Yeah, that's what I meant. But yeah,
I mean, Tropic Thunder is an underrated.
It is. Well, I don't know. Are we allowed to say that anymore? But
it's come back around. It's just like we understand why it was slightly uncouth and that it's still appreciated. So
I think everyone loves Ben Stiller now because of Severance and all the stuff he's doing. Everyone's just
currently watching Severance.
Sidebar
here.
Yeah, James like, don't spoil it on the podcast. Oh man, how did we get there?
My fuck up.
It was the Godfather 3 moment for Eddie.
I did a Michael Corleone. I've lost. I'm washed.
You're rattled.
This is what happens. I don't record podcasts late. It's 9:42. I'm normally in bed, and I'm just all over the place.
For nearly 50 minutes.
Yeah, we're bringing him into the degenerate hour that Jamie and I exist in. Yeah, but that is kind of that bring it back, that is what this result did for me a little bit as well, as it gave me some hope heading into next year. I mean, I as much as I would love to pull myself away at times, like I say to my wife sometimes when she's looking at me like, and my wife is a huge sports fan as well. She loves it. But she sometimes looks at me when I'm down in the dumps and like, why do you do this to yourself? And I'm like, sometimes if I had was offered the Men in Black little flashy thing and could just take it all away at the darkest moments, like when I was at the last Pac-12 championship and Washington beat Oregon, I was like, I would take it right now. But like, ultimately I'm in this and like, I'll be ride or die, but you need those moments of hope to keep you going. And like that at the end of that game just brought me so much joy, and it reminded me of the good parts. And to your point, Ed, there's so many good fans out there. Yes, there was the vocal minority, and like some of them, like I always say, in between the lines, they had some valid criticisms. They just went about it the wrong way and would get too far into it, and like would like lose the point in the weeds of like their own agendas. And sports just doesn't exist in the way they expect it to. But this result was just so much fun, and I just want to go back to it. I want to go back to that first quarter and just stand there on the hill and let it wash over me as the events occurred again. And it's just, that's one of those games, and watching the package again and actually putting it together again, just watching the close up of Boak when everyone rushing him and hugging him, and you can see him trying to talk to him, and I don't know what he's saying, maybe thanks boys or whatever, but you can tell just how much it meant to him. And ultimately, that's what we're in this thing for, is like those kind of moments. It's just incredible. A great way to finish the season, a great way to let Kim go into the sunset and let Boak go into the sunset. Willie Rioli as well, as we found out later. Chad Cornes, Chris Davies, everyone else that's gone off into the sunset since. An incredible event. And, you know, with the fact that Gold Coast, the things they had to play for as well, they genuinely had top four in play for themselves going into that game, which is wild to think now. But they had top four. They could have had a home final as well. They're still in finals for the first time, but there was a lot they had to play for that we kind of took away from them that night, and really fun to do that, I find. Any other thoughts on that? I'll if you have any other thoughts, I want to give you the space for it, but otherwise we can move on.
Oh, just moments like that are why we love sport, and I think that just was a reminder of that fact. And I remember sitting in that studio on my own, screaming at the TV, no one else in the SEN studios. And it's a weird way to watch it, but it was a moment, I'll never forget. So thanks, Port Adelaide, for that moment.
Yeah,
it's part of it.
I agree with that.
Moments, like wherever you are, even if it's like on the hill or in a studio on your own, you have your own attachment to it as a Port Adelaide fan. It doesn't matter where you were a part of it, and you remember that exact place you were. Jamie?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've said it before, but sport is the greatest reality TV show there is. It's the unwritten drama that unfolds right in front of us, and that's what keeps us invested. You take the lows just to experience the chalices at the end of a win, like that one against Gold Coast, because you try and keep your hands down when you win like that. It's just intrinsic. You're just reaching for the heavens in unadulterated and pure delight in those moments, and it's what we live for.
Beer showers on the hill were amazing. Oh.
Yeah, it hooks us in. It keeps us coming back for more. The agony and the ecstasy go hand in hand, and hopefully you experience more ecstasy than agony across your sporting spectatorship. But just a comment on the Ken notion. I think, Eddie, you touched on it in a different way. But that night and the attitude from the fans at the ground, because it was Gold Coast, so most of the people there were either going for Port or leaning towards Port. Excuse me. And
apart from my competitive brother.
Yeah. One thing that I am thankful for is that the attitude of the people there did show to me that the heaviest of critics, or that vocal minority that we spoke about, are just that. they are the minority, and the majority of Port Adelaide fans, while we all hurt that we didn't reach the ultimate success and lift up a cup for Ken, for Boki, for Robbie, for Westy, all of the champions of our club in this recent era. We all still remain pragmatic about football and football at the highest level, and those that are there to lead us in our case. So I appreciate the reception that he got, and it was nice to be not reminded, but nice to confirm that the vocal minority were and are just that. And like Dave said, between the lines, some of the sentiments were okay, and some of those people we actually get along with in certain ways across the social media landscape. But yeah, just some of the ways that people would almost take it personally, the way the club managed itself. And these individuals only had a snippet of information to go off of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100% agreed. It is a very, very tough world out there to be involved in this sport at the highest level, and certainly the coach takes the brunt of it. As we kind of shift into gear into the post-mortem of the entire season, Eddie, you mentioned off air that BNF happened last night, so it's very fresh in mind. Zach Butters wins the player at the best and fairest, the John Cahill medal, and well deserved for another season. That he hit some incredible standards, and despite missing the start of it, he came back in and really hit the ground running pretty quickly. The BNF, your thoughts on everything that occurred?
I've got a few. I'm gonna hit a few different topics here. So first of all, Zach Butters unbelievable. Just absolute freak, and I hope he breaks the best and fairest record. And if he stays for Port Adelaide, he absolutely will. He'll end up with 5 or 6. So shout out Zach Butters, unbelievable stuff. The top 3, if you just look at the top 3, like that's a pretty awesome top 3. Like Butters, Rosie, Georgiades. Obviously, you'd want HORNE-FRANCIS up there, but those 3 and then the 4, including HORNE-FRANCIS, leading a club forward, like that's a solid top 4. And that's a 4 that you can absolutely go ahead and compete with. So that was a win. The depth stuff was just fully on show in the top 10 count. Like there was a few names in there that you go, wow. We need to go find some of those mid-level players to help us out. I've been pretty critical of Joe Richards all year. Like he does some good stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. But can you just kick some goals, Joe? And Chad messaged me last week and he says, I'm never going to listen to your show again if you start bagging Joe Richards anymore. So,
yeah, because he loves him. He's loved him since day one.
He absolutely loves him. And I pot him on every show. And he's not happy with that. And I guess the best and fairest reflected how much the coaches love him. So maybe I'm just wrong there, but I'd just like to see a few more.
Yeah, there's a few of your guys.
Yeah.
Is it just the goals? Is it just the goals, or is it just hitting the scoreboard? Because I find a lot of I would agree with that. I find a lot of the other stuff he does well. I'm thinking a better team, he might even feature better. But is it?
He's a winning player. Like I would describe him as a winning player. Like the effort he brings is unmatched. The pressure, tackling stuff, like that's all great. I just want him to be a little bit more dangerous. Like I don't think anyone's circling Joe Richards on a whiteboard and saying we have to make sure we stop this guy. Willie Riol in his prime, people were going, we have to stop this guy. Like he's a match winner. I don't think Richards is a match winner yet. That could come.
Right.
I love all the other stuff. I want him to see him impact the scoreboard and just make teams a little bit more afraid of him. That's what I want. So anyway, there's a little side note for you.
That's constructive criticism. Yeah. Even if Chad doesn't like it.
I don't know how Chad's listened to my show. Like he listens to every episode, and I've been so critical of Port and the forward line. I don't know how. Anyway, just suffering.
That's good. That's good family. They're supporting you.
Yeah, it's a weird dynamic at Christmas.
Even if he's like sitting there listening, like just wanting to send out an angry text to you, but
yeah. Anyway, so yeah, there you go. So that was a funny thing there. And then
you, Eddie, Chad from Brighton. I don't know where he lives.
I might have been getting some anonymous text, not realizing it was actually him.
Yeah. He's got a burner.
Yeah. So there was that. And then the other thing was, this ties into the hypocrisy of the Ken bashers. So Ken speaks for like a very short amount of time. His speech is short, and then he gets straight out of the best and fairest. So he doesn't hang around, which is fair enough. Like, he's clearly of the mindset, my time is done. I'm clearing the way for everyone else. Let's help the club move toward the future, which I think is the right thing to do. The night against Gold Coast was the perfect way to finish. That's the way to send him off. Let's move on. All the Port fans that criticise Ken Hinkley for not speaking longer, why aren't you criticising Josh Carr? It is a norm for coaches to speak at the best and fairest and tell the fans what they can look forward to in the future, especially if the club is coming off a super disappointing season. So, me personally, I just would have liked Josh to get up on stage and kind of sell us on his vision, what's going to change, but also sell players that may be thinking about coming to Port Adelaide. Like, I don't think there's a lot of reason to come to Port Adelaide right now. Sell us on the why. Why should players who are on the fence come to Port, especially when it's more difficult to recruit players from Adelaide compared to Melbourne? I just think I would have liked to have seen him speak. And I don't really know why he didn't. Like, it wasn't a night to celebrate the past. They had done that against Gold Coast. Ken got out as soon as he could. Even just acknowledge how important Ken's been. Like, just something. He's the new face of the club. I would have liked to have heard his thoughts on the season and what he's going to be doing going forward.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I hadn't even thought of that. I mean, my only thought would be that they'd look at it and go, it's a 2025 best and fairest as far as, while your point about going towards the future is correct, they probably, the night goes long enough without throwing another speech in there.
That's true.
Because I watched the whole thing. Like, I just put my iPad and AirPlayed it to my Apple TV, and all the gaps for them to have their delicious desserts and dinners. Like, I think it was 11 o'clock by the time I was able to turn it off. I'd imagine it's purely a 2025. It's a celebration of that. Ken got out of there to probably clear the way for the rest of the night to be enjoyable, and maybe Ken just didn't. I don't know what Ken's nighttime schedule is, but he might not be much of a night owl. It's an interesting thought though. Like, it would have been nice to maybe see a little passing of the baton part. Like, maybe Ken and
the club
Josh
the club keeps telling
together.
us Ken and Josh love each other. Like, they're so tight. Ken's been a great mentor to Josh. They've got so much respect for each other. Can we actually see it? Have we seen it at all? Like, there's been no interaction between the two on the field, walking off the ground, of at least any significance. Could we have got Josh up and just said thank you to Ken, pass the torch over, shake hands on stage, just give us something, because everyone keeps telling us Ken was in on the plan, Ken wanted to do the succession plan. We haven't really seen a lot of evidence of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one of those things that I think is just going to be a story that will come out across the next few years a little bit once we get away from it. Yep. But I mean, Jamie, what do you reckon about it? It's not something I thought about at all while I was watching it last night, but I mean, it would have been a nice moment maybe. But I again just think it was probably a 2025 thing, and they've got a schedule of events they've got to get through, and it probably would have. To your point, Eddie, I don't know how many. I mean, who knows how many opposition players are really going to take much notice of. I mean, a soundbite from Josh would have done maybe some numbers.
My point on that though is Matthew Nix has spoken at every BNF the last few years. The Crows have been poor, and he's just steadfast in his vision. Like, he has sold it constantly. He's never wavered. He says, we're going to be tough. We're going to be sound defensively. And our offense will be built off the back of that. And that's been their identity all year. Like, the proof is in the pudding for the Crows at the moment. So I think players like Neil Bullen, who's coming from a winning team, who's won a premiership, players like Peatling, who's been in a successful side, they're looking at that and saying, that's a guy I can get behind. Even though the success isn't there yet, I can see they're definitely building towards something. What's Port's identity next year? Can anyone tell me? Like, sell me on something. Yeah, I just need a little bit more than, we got the win against Gold Coast, but everyone who won is leaving. Just a little bit, like, just something to go, that's where we're headed. That's why I need to keep buying into Port Adelaide. That's why I buy my membership next year, and that's why I believe in Josh Carr.
Mm-hmm. And Jamie, what do you haven't had your chance to speak on that idea yet? What do you think?
It's an interesting point. Off the back of an interesting handover. I was knee deep in a bucket of paint for most of the best and fairest. So I saw Ken's speech, and
it's a good metaphor for what is the changeover of Port Adelaide right now. the club's in a knee deep in a bucket of paint right now, trying to change the fortunes.
Yeah. Look, I think it's a bit similar to the Ken haters. I think that Josh Carr would be doing a lot of what you're asking for behind closed doors. I say that probably more so with the information that's come out today in regards to some players that we've targeted, one of which being associated with Josh Carr. I think, when it comes to the fans, I don't think we're that important. And that's not to say that we're not important and like, shut the fuck up. Like, we're members and fair forever. Players, officials, they come and go. I'd agree with Dave in that it was a 2025 season best and fairest. But there is also that dynamic where Ken, said his bit and then he left. So in terms of selling it to the fans, we usually see stuff like that in the season launches. So I dare say, we'll get quite a long speech from Josh come then. I'd agree that opposition fans probably aren't watching our best and opposition players aren't watching our best and fairest to gain inspiration on what would it have been the 2nd of September. Some of which might even be playing in finals, like players that we're targeting and things like that. So again, I think it's his vision would be sold a lot off field, and it's not just him. It's Koshy, it's the football department, it's all of that. Kosh's speech was all right. He's definitely had longer himself. But and maybe they've gone off the back of the good graces from that Gold Coast game. They're like, everyone's on side now. So
that's what it feels like a little bit.
Like, done with.
I just don't think it could have hurt. Like people, I'm sure people who work for the Tassie Football Club have watched Ken's press conferences the last few weeks and have watched his speech in the best and fairest. It all gets clipped up on socials now. Big footy accounts are posting it. I'm sure they saw that and thought, hang on, like this guy, maybe there's a role for him at our footy club. I'm sure Sam Mitchell's watched how Ken's down himself.
Big footy.
Yeah. I'm sure other clubs have watched Ken's speech last week, the way the players have embraced him and thought, you know what, maybe there's a role for him at our club. I just think players take a little bit more notice of that than you might think, especially on social media now.
I mean, to your point, just to interject for a second to agree with you and then let you go again. The Sench footy account did post a clip of Ken talking about the bullshit of the family. So there is some accounts out there that did grab bits of what was going on last night. So you could say that if Josh Carr had gotten up and put out like a thesis for his time as coach, like maybe it could have gotten clipped by that kind of account as well.
I just think every great footy team at the moment has an identity, and the Crows are the best example of this. Like their identity is there every game. They might have a shit week, but they're there. That identity is there nonetheless. They play tough, hard defense, and they score off the back of that. Port Adelaide didn't have an identity this year, and that's what I really struggled with. And that was the main thing I came away from the Carlton game going, like, what are we doing here? When we're speaking during the week in coaches' meetings, what are they saying we have to improve at? What is our thing going to be? Because it was midfield dominance during the best years of Ken. That's completely gone now. There was none of that this season. So what are we going to be going forward? And I just would have liked someone to try and clear that up a little bit.
Yeah. No, I'd like to. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think of it last night because I was in my mind. I was just purely thinking about the 2025 season. But like, now I think about it, it would have been nice to, again. I don't take too much from it. I'll see the proof will be in the pudding in the off season. That is to be ahead, and we'll talk about that for a few minutes coming up in a sec. But it would have been. I don't disagree with your point either. It would have been nice to have Carr up there just because he is the incoming coach. We've known it. It's not like it's. If you're going to do a succession plan, then you're already doing something that's a little bit different than what other clubs or some clubs have done it. But you then do provide yourself the opportunity with the fact that Carr has been known as the incoming coach for 9 months now or so. You do provide yourself the opportunity to add that into the celebratory nature of the event of the night and say, hey, look, have a couple of minutes, get up there, speak. And a few of the players like Boki, I think Boki and Butters both talked about Carr in their speeches. Butters in particular talked about Kari and his impact on his time. So like there was some mentions of him, and certainly I'm hopeful for the future. But I mean to kind of transition into one of the points I had, like just for a brief moment, how are you? You know, it's far too early. Obviously, we've got a full off season to come. Draft, obviously, a draft end isn't strong, but draft, free agency, well, whether it be free agency or trades, there's already the rumor, reports out there that we kind of alluded to in Will Brodie and Jacob Ware coming across possibly, and whatever may come. But what are your first thought, like just far too early thoughts on how we may go under Josh Carr in his first season?
I don't think we'll be playing finals next year. I think the focus for Port at the moment, before they start fully pursuing big names, like trying to lure someone out of a club or whatever, just let's try fix the internal stuff. So fitness, injury stuff, let's try to get that under control. Make sure we have a strong preseason. Let's make sure players like Lukosius know what they're doing during the off season so they don't come back injured. And so let's figure that stuff out first. That's would be my number one focus. There's a lot of stuff we can fix internally. Let's get our messaging right. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. Let's find a new Chris Davies replacement. Let's find another coach, a senior assistant that can help Carr out. And then we can start pursuing those names that you just mentioned there. I mean, neither of them are groundbreaking names. Like Nasai would have been real nice. We've gone from Nasai Wangadeen Miller to some fringe GWS and Freo players. It's kind of like, oh well, bit of a stomach punch, but is what it is. And then the other thing is you've got to get some sort of commitment from Butters. It doesn't necessarily have to be a contract extension, but let's just figure out where his head's at. And I think that's going to be one of the challenges with Ken leaving, is he had the relationship with Zach to sit down, have that conversation. Where are you at? How are you feeling? What can we do to make you commit to the footy club long term? You mentioned he spoke about Kari in his speech. Does that relationship exist between those two? I'm not sure. We'll find out during the year, and if he recommits, then it clearly does. But I just think that's also something Port have got to figure out. And the Chris Davies thing just throws a huge spanner in the works, because I know for a fact Carr's been having pretty consistent and regular conversations with Chris Davies throughout the year about what the off season is going to look like, who they're going to chase. And now all that stuff's just thrown out the window, and he's got to do it again with a whole new person, and Port are behind the 8 ball. So it's tough with that loss as well. And I see a lot of Port fans celebrating. Chris Davies is very good at what he does. Port have never had the best list in the competition while Ken Hinckley has been coach, but the fact that Port Adelaide have never really had a huge reset season, they've made some pretty good trades. Like the Wingard trade just looks incredible in hindsight. There's been a few blunders here and there, and he hasn't had a great end to his tenure. But I think he's really good at what he does, and they're not super easy positions to fill. Like the head of footy is a big job, and it takes a guy who knows exactly what he's doing and has a vision and a belief that he can come in and fix Port Adelaide, despite the fact that they don't have any picks. So that's the other challenge I'm going on here, but they don't have their picks this season. So it's not a super appealing job either, especially now that Naz has gone to St Kilda. So again, internal stuff is what I'll be focusing on first. Let's figure out who's replacing Chris Davies. Let's get a senior assistant in. Let's figure out our fitness program and then go from there.
I would absolutely agree. I think, and I'll pass to Jamie in a moment. I did bring it up to, I think after the Crows game, actually, the second showdown, and that debacle I really made fitness and that program our focus, because I was just like, even just beyond the injuries and stuff like that, just the way the Crows tackled and the pressure they applied, and just the tightness of how they play, the tightness of them as a physical specimens, and how they could attribute that to the pressure and the tackle and the stoppage, and everything they did was like similar age play. And it wasn't even like apples and oranges. Well, might be apples and oranges, but it was like I tried to pick players that were of a similar age and similar draft year, and just how their development had gone. And there was a little bit of, so yeah, I agree like that. And that's probably my sentiments a fair bit, that because we don't have strong hands in free agency or the draft, that the real way that we can improve going into next year will be internal stuff that we can just improve on. I have some hope in the youth that we have. Well, it may not be all mind-blowing stuff. If we do the right things with them, who knows what the ceiling is for some of those people. So Jamie, how are you feeling? Far too early, obviously, being that we're still in September, but your thoughts?
I don't think the Chris Davies news has come at a good time, because I agree that I think he's a lot better than what some portions of the fan base give him credit for. A guy like that, he's not being chased constantly by other clubs or AFL House themselves if he's terrible at football operations. I think the
11 years on the job as well. Like, it's a long tenure and a fair bit of data there.
Well, and what do any of these people have to go off of? It is just that byproduct of their distaste for Ken and everyone associated with him, but also that cognitive dissonance that you spoke about, Dave, that the players, the players that attribute their success to Ken, they're fantastic. Love Boakey, love Robbie. Fuck yeah. But, getting distracted there. To know that, those discussions are had with Chris and now he's gone. It is a major priority to sort out, with like Ed mentioned, a senior assistant now to fill, with Josh Carr leaving that post to go to the head coach position. In terms of the team, I think we probably would be relying on our best 23 again next year, but I think it's a best 23 that can rebound, as long as we have most of them play most of the season, where we weren't afforded that this year. I mean, on Ed, your show, when we appeared earlier this year, I had us finishing in the finals, and the only two people that have gone from that team are Boak and Willie Rioli. Travis Boak, to be fair, while he gave everything he got in the last month, he wasn't in our top portion of players. Yeah. And Willie Rioli, I think, was and had scare factor, like you're wanting out of Richards. So that's going to be a big piece to replace, and scare factor like that doesn't grow on trees, so it may have to be a Moneyball type thing. And that's where I see.
They'd be hoping Berry does some of that next year, and he showed signs. I mean, the thing with Berry that's just rough is we could add Murphy Reid, so that'll always be slightly painful, but that's just what happens with the draft. So I think Berry showed good signs later in the year, so I think Port Adelaide will be hoping he is the scare factor.
I think Berry, I agree. Yeah, I think Berry, particularly after he had a huge stint in the SNFL and then to come back into AFL, he showed a lot more. Obviously had his feet planted in the ground a bit more. I think the Reid Berry conversation will be very similar to the Rosie Walsh conversation. I think Reid had a fantastic year, but I think Berry's scope to play other positions on the ground is potentially a bit bigger. Whereas I think Reid may continue being a fantastic goal kicker for Freo. A goal involvement player, because he had quite a number of assists this year as well. It is easy to put a premium on one season of evidence. So I think the thing with Berry is just purely comes down to experience. But I do agree that with that experience may come that scare factor, because he's already drawing comparisons to Robbie Gray, and very few players, particularly in the Port Adelaide modern era, who had more scare factor than Robbie Gray, whether he's in the midfield or the forward line, which, like I was saying, I do see scope for Berry to emulate that in time. Whereas at the moment, I see Murphy Reid continuing to be a fantastic goal kicker. But in terms of our list strategy, I think it started on a pretty good note. I don't disagree with a lot of the delistings that we made. There's a bit of conjecture about Hugh Jackson, and we lauded Hugh Jackson's year, Dave and I, for the signs that he showed. But obviously, I'm pretty sure, yeah, the other guy, Josh Carr, I think may have coached him a little bit at North Adelaide. You have to go check that. So it probably wouldn't have been an easy decision, but to play devil's advocate for that decision being made, if you're 4 years into your career and you're now only showing signs, then maybe it's not as big of a call as what we're thinking it is. We're obviously romantics with the players that we have in Port Adelaide, and good people, or people that show signs of good football, we want to hold on to, just to try and squeeze every last bit of it out.
And he's
but
a
apart from that,
boyhood Port Adelaide fan as well. That was part of it.
Yeah, there's the story behind it as well. I think he's close family friends with the Rosie family too. But at the end of the day, we got to do what's best for the club moving forward. And I think the other delistings that we made were pretty fair enough for mine. It gives us room to move. And yeah, I don't think we would have done that if there wasn't some sort of a plan in place. And that plan may have involved Chris Davies, like you're mentioning with those conversations. So it would have been nice to be a fly on the wall when he did put in his notice that he was going to leave, to see how that truly went down. But at the end of the day, it's happened. They need to focus on getting the right people in place. And some word on the street is that there are discussions underway with some coaches interstate, and some of which who are in teams that are competing in the finals. So I look forward to some of those announcements being made. But when it comes back to the core group, I have faith, that we won't have another injury run like we did this year. I desperately hope we don't. And it's rare that AFL clubs do have horror season backed up by another horror season, but we can't rest on that fact. We need to put in the work from a fitness point of view, and get our best team on the park, because I think it's good enough.
Yeah, and it's got to be kind of some like no stone left unturned kind of stuff, because you've seen teams, and Eddie's pointed out, like the Crows have had a very singular vision and a very locked in kind of plan towards what they're going towards, despite Matty Nix being under some pressure from outwardly maybe over the last few years. So unfortunately, kind of the model is within our own state. As much as we hate them, they've shown a good model towards what they've built towards. It's been painful at times, but they've reaped the rewards this year from a meteoric rise from 15th to 1st. So yeah, unfortunately that is the model, but they have shown the way, and it is all about having everyone on the same page. And that's to Ed's point and your point as well. Like it is unfortunate that the Chris Davies, all this stuff is like a lot of changes. Too many changes seem to be happening at once. But if we do the right things going forward, hopefully we can kind of smooth that out a little bit. I mean, Ed, like any of those delistings, I mean, we can do two things here. One question, anything about the delistings? I mean, retirement's one thing. Willie Rioli was a surprise to some. Jamie and I have talked about it a bit across the year. I was expecting it somewhat. Jamie was hopeful. I would have loved him to stick around, but I was kind of seeing reading the tea leaves and just thinking he looked like he was on his way up.
Yeah.
But as far as the delistings go, anyone surprising that you wish to have kept, or can you see a plan to that and a little bit of maybe some ruthlessness in trying to build the list going forward?
Yeah, I'll start with Rioli. First off, really disappointing. And was just such an important player for Port Adelaide in his prime, and a player that could go ahead and win a game off his own boot. So although he didn't play very well this year, he's going to be a huge loss. And again, it'll just open the door for some opportunities for some other players to hopefully step up in his absence. Delistings wise, I was surprised by Jackson. I would have kept him. I thought he came off the bench came on as sub at a few times in the year and really had an impact and brought just energy and effort, which wasn't always there for Port this season. So I would have kept him around. But also, I always just tend to default to coaches on delistings. They're trying to win. They're there every day. They see these players much better than what we do. They see them at training every day. Like, I just kind of default to their judgment on this. And there's not a ton of delistings that really come back and bite teams. Patrick Voss is one for Essendon that's really hurt them. But that's a pretty rare case. There's a few Hawks players that have been delisted and come on and played really well, like D'Ambrosio. But overall, it doesn't typically happen. So I'm not. Yeah, I think Essendon's had a few bad ones. So let's not turn into them. Hopefully Hugh Jackson doesn't go to the Crows and just kill us or something. But I didn't have an issue with any of the other ones. I just think for Port Adelaide at the moment, there's just so many question marks. Like, you go through each group of players, the forward line, Georgiades is the only guy that you can say 100% he's going to be an absolute star. Ollie Lord, what is happening with him? Who knows? Jack Whitlock looked great at times, but if he's the true number 2 for the whole season, 1, can his body hold up? And 2, can he deal with that sort of attention for the whole season and still perform? Who knows? Richards, we've already talked about. Can he start hitting the scoreboard a little bit more? Berry had moments, but he's another player that needs to start impacting the scoreboard a bit more. DBJ just gets a bit older. He still finished top 10 in the best and fairest this year, which is a great effort. But who knows with him going forward as well? POWELL-PEPPER, hopefully he comes back as good as ever from his injury. But just if we're being realistic, who knows? It would be an incredible effort if he came back from 2 knee reconstructions and was still as good as a player as he has been at points in his career. Midfield, Ollie Wines and Willem Drew, where do they kind of fit now? HORNE-FRANCIS just needs to have a big preseason and come in and just tear the competition to shreds. Like, this is the year to prove everyone right about you. The expectations are high. He's still younger than Riley Thilthorpe. No one realizes that. He is. So it's not like he's getting to 27 years old and hasn't quite lived up to expectations yet. He's still so young. So I'm expecting a huge year from him next year. And then Butters is the big question mark, not on field but off field for the midfield. They've got to try to convince him somehow. And if I was being honest, he's definitely not leaving this off season like he is saying at Port Adelaide. But if I had to bet my life on whether Zach Butters will stay or go in free agency, I would right now bet he's going. So they've got a bit of work to do to keep him at Port Adelaide. And if he left, it would just be
free agency. So that is a little.
Yeah, but if it's true. But if he wants to go, he's going.
That's exactly right. That's what it's kind of frustrating about it. Side note, would you're a US sports fan, and I feel like Supermax and stuff and the contract things that they do in the US don't mean as much because players earn so much through different ways that they can earn money over there.
Yeah,
and this is in purely biased opinion because I want Butters to stay. Wouldn't it be great if you could have that kind of contract, like lever to pull with players that you drafted, just with players you've drafted when they come to free agency, just to be able to, like, there's a salary cap thing to add like a little bit of like a loyalty bonus in there, and then really test the ability for them. And if they really want to go home, you match the contract and they still go to the preseason draft, whatever. I'd love that. I don't know how that would work with the AFL. I don't know, but it's just something I've been thinking about a lot, entirely because of the fact that I really want Butters to stay, and I'm looking for every reason to make him stay.
I think there's so many issues with contract stuff at the moment, and it just comes down to the player association, the players, and the agents just have too much power. Like, it's a player-driven league, and if a player wants to go, they're more than likely going to get their wishes, despite the fact that a team probably doesn't have the value to get them. Like if Nasai Wanganeen-Miller said he's going to Port, he's probably going to end up at Port, and Port would trade 2 future firsts and Bergman, and it would be nowhere near the value he is. But that's just the reality. So I think contract lengths are something they have to look at. But I agree. I think there definitely should be a reward for players re-signing to the team they were drafted by, and especially as contracts go up and up and up. Like Wanganeen-Miller is getting $2 million a year. I also think they need to start looking at, we can just trade whoever we want. We need permission from the player to be traded. Like the average salary is now getting towards $700K. Like Lee Kalia is going to make $750,000 next year. Jack Silvani is going to be making $900,000 a year for the next 5 years. Silvani's had probably 10 or 11 or 12 really good games this year, but 2 years ago he's getting paid $500,000. This is another side note. Jason Horne-Francis is on the same amount of money as Lee Kalia next year, which is just mind blowing. But anyway, what a deal for Port Adelaide. I think that's
for it too.
I know, it was ridiculous. That's the one long-term deal where you go, if you get Jason Horne-Francis for $700K a year, you kind of have to do it despite how long the deal is. So yeah, I think there's so many contract things they got to look at. And then the last thing would be, let's make contracts public, because we see the top 100 player list every year. We basically know how much each player is on. Just put it out publicly so there's no conjecture and no arguing. Let's just see the player contracts. It just makes it easier for everyone.
Yeah, you sound influenced by that opinion.
Yeah, I know. I sound very much
in your
like
household.
There, but, I agree with him on most of that stuff. And I just think that's because that's honestly just because I'm coming from American sport, where I think those contracts work really well. But like,
there's like everyone talks about it, but it's kind of still with one hand behind your back, because it's like it's believed that they're on 1.2 million.
Yeah, and then
and this guy's on about this. Yeah,
and then it causes almost players to get criticism. Like Adam Simpson was speaking on Crunch Time earlier in the year. I can't remember which player it was, but there was a West Coast player that was apparently in $1 million a year, and he was getting a lot of criticism for that, because you're meant to be a super high paid player, and you're not playing, you're not performing. And Simpson was like, he wasn't even close to that. So let's just make it public. Like, it's better for everyone. We basically know anyway. It doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, I definitely look at that. And I would look at the American sport model, especially now we're heading towards, still a while away, but the next TV deal is going to be really interesting, because DAZN is now owned. DAZN owns Fox Footy now. And do they have any interest in footy? They haven't really shown a lot of interest in the AFL since buying Fox. So if there's no offer from Fox, what does the next TV deal look like? And then does the salary cap just completely stop in its tracks? Everyone's resounded to the fact that it's going to keep going up. But if Fox Footy isn't a bidder...
The last 10 years, it's almost doubled, hasn't it? 15 years, it's doubled. So yeah, it would be and I feel like teams are kind of working towards that as their thoughts as to how it's going to keep going as well.
Yeah, there's contracts going past the next TV deal now, and it's a big risk. Like it is a risk, despite what people say. If Fox isn't bidding, they've got to be saved by a streamer. Then it's Apple, it's Amazon. Someone like that has to save the AFL, or they're in a bit of trouble with salary cap stuff.
Yeah, Stan Sport as well. Premier League. I'd love to have Premier League and AFL same deal, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Look, I mean, to end on that, do you think Zach Butters is going to stay after next year, or are you leaning towards the fact he might be gone?
I don't think he'll stay. I just think him and Ken's connection was so strong, and that's what was keeping him tethered to Port. He's got a lot of family in Melbourne. I think there's going to be pretty incredible offers from the Dogs and from Hawthorn. And it's going to be hard to say no to playing in a team with Ed Richards, Marcus Bontempelli, Sam Darcy, and just an elite midfield. Make your life so much easier. Or going to Hawthorn and playing alongside some young players that are just on the up and look like they could build into a dynasty. And then you look around at Port Adelaide and you just kind of stuck between eras. The only thing that gives me a bit of hope is I just think he'll he'll really struggle to leave the midfield. Like, I just think Rosie and HORNE-FRANCIS have, and a few other players there have built such a strong relationship with him that it won't be an easy decision. But if I had to lean one way, I think he'll be leaving. Definitely not this year, but I think the year after.
Yeah. That's right.
Georgiadis too.
So yeah,
they're still good mates, it seems. So, yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Hope I'm wrong.
It's going to be one of the most frustrating things to be involved with next year, because we will see where we had the Naz should stay at St Kilda from the Victorian-centric media. Next year, it'll be how good would it be to see Zach Butters in Victoria again? And we're us as Port Adelaide fans, we're just going to have to sit and cuck it for the whole year, while they openly barrack for Zach Butters to go back to Victoria. And I think it'll be a very similar decision to Naz in that he's not unhappy. And it won't be a matter of overt loyalty or anything. It'll be some very important underlying personal factors, and it won't be get me to the club closest to a premiership or some of those more material things. It'll be a deep decision. But yeah, like I said, unfortunately, next year we're just going to have to cop the barracking for him to go home and hope that he stays with his relationships with the players, like you mentioned. And I do think his relationship with Josh Carr is probably better than what may appear, it may appear at the moment.
I've got no idea like what their relationship is like. So they could be the tightest friends ever. Like, who knows?
I know he credits him a lot for getting him into the midfield in the first place while he was kind of still plugging away as a small forward.
I do have a little bit of a theory. I've got a conspiracy theory. All this merit stuff. I think he's trying to get out of Essendon this year because he knows Butters might be taking his spot the year after. So at
Essendon.
At Hawthorn. I think he's trying to get to Hawthorn.
Get to Hawthorn first. Yeah, right.
Well, that's a little bit of a conspiracy theory. He might not even request a trade or anything, but I think he was just testing the waters a little bit because not only him, but a few others are looking at Hawthorn.
Jesus.
Well, Merritt has been pretty uncomfortable with how Essendon's going for a couple of times, even before he re-signed the last time, which was last year or the year before. Yeah. And I know we were looking for Zach Merritt, and I know that came down to his relationship with Ken Hinkley as well. From what I understand, there's some family connection with the Merritt family and the Hinkley family, but it didn't happen. And yeah, Merritt is again uninspired by the Essendon situation. So that's interesting theory, though. Get to Hawthorn before Zach does. I mean, I'm all for it if it means it's one less avenue. But
yeah, it helps us.
I think we're all thinking that like Bulldogs is still the number one if it is if Zach were to move.
Yeah, I see no scenario where he goes to a shit team. Like, I think North Melbourne have a huge offer on the table for him or are trying to get him. No chance Zach Butters leaves Port Adelaide for North Melbourne. I'll put my flag in the ground right now. That just won't happen. So he will be leaving for a better situation. And if one presents itself, I definitely think he'll listen to offers and see what happens.
Yeah. To be completely objective, it's absolutely within his, like, as a person and as a human setting himself up for life, it's within his purview to do that. Like, he's set himself up as one of the most marketable and best players in the competition coming into restricted free agency. It's worth his, like, I mean, I hate to do it because I want to be like, fuck everyone else, like, sign for Port Adelaide, doesn't matter the money, but like, it does warrant him taking it into next year. It's just, the annoying thing is with how much the media, and we're a podcast and you work in media, like we all do this, but like there's so much chatter. Like the annoying thing is like it's 18 months out now, 2 years out now with Zach Butters, rather than when I was a kid. Ironically, with Josh Carr in 2004, I was only really aware, like I was 16 in 2004 when we won that premiership. I was really only started becoming aware that Josh Carr might leave after this year. Like I just don't remember thinking about it like 2 years out. But now we do, and
it's so different now. Like I'm sure the contracts will be pretty similar that Butters gets offered from Port and whoever. But him being in Melbourne is just going to be so different for his brand. Like I've gotten into countless arguments with people this year while living in Melbourne. They just don't realize how good he is. Like Finey, the guy who hosts Finey's Final Siren, Mark Fine, he came out I was paneling Finey. He came out in the into the thing, and he was like ranking players he wished he could have in his midfield. And he puts Matt Rowell and Finn Callahan above Zach Butters. And I like fully started getting into a big argument with this guy because that is just the most delusional thing I've ever heard. This guy is a top 5 player in the AFL. I don't want to hear people telling me he's not better than the Wanganeen Miller. I think right now he is. Naz's ceiling's probably higher, but I'm still taking Butters over Naz every day of the week.
Butters has a track record that you can't deny.
That's what I've been saying, and he doesn't hit the scoreboard. Well, look, I think
he didn't this year, but he does. He has in the past.
Yeah, agree. So that frustrates the hell out of me. Like people just don't realize how good he is, and I'm sure he's looking at Victoria and saying there's so many sponsorship opportunities, so many brand opportunities, and I can kind of go in there, and if I play for Hawthorn or the Dogs, people are going to realize how fucking good I actually am.
It's going to make you sick. I've said it before. If it does happen, I'll be sick. I won't be able to watch a game that he's involved with. And I'm pretty honest. I already feel sick at the thought of him not wearing Port Adelaide Guernsey. And that's what I mean. Next year is going to be painful.
Yeah. Especially for losing.
Speculation.
It'll be for me one of the moments in my life where I realized sports fucking really sucks and players can just move and break your hearts was like Fernando Torres moving from Liverpool to Chelsea in the middle of like a season. Because Fernando Torres was like the guy that wrote "You'll Never Walk Alone" on his armband. Was at Madrid, and the whole song was like his arm improved. He was Torres, "You'll Never Walk Alone." It said Torres, and then he comes in, blazes away, has a great couple of years, but Liverpool are kind of middling, and we have owners that are going into bankruptcy because of the financial crisis, and he gets disillusioned and then leaves. And he was a player that I grew into an adult watching, and he broke my heart. And I've from that point on, I'm never going to let anything affect me that way yet again. And I've watched
and here we are.
That's the thing is I've watched Suarez leave. I've watched Philippe Coutinho leave, which Liverpool still utilizing that money 8 years later. Alexander Isak, thank you. The Coutinho credit card keeps rolling. But Zach Butters leaving might be the first time I feel that way since then. And I'm completely trying to compartmentalize it. Be I understand why he would take opportunities, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting year that next year. And that's what I'm already worrying about is I remember that year of media speculation about Torres to Chelsea. And I was no, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And then it happened. And I was that was when I was in college in Oregon, and I just went and found a dive bar in Eugene and just drank for half a day until my girlfriend at the time came and picked me up. She's like, "Why are you a mess?" I'm like, "Torres left." That'll be me when Butters go. Yeah, exactly. Good luck, Andrea. Last thoughts. I just want a quick thought on the debutants and youth this year. Eddie, how did you feel about them? We've got Murray, Whitlock, Berry. Obviously, we've spoken about some of those. We haven't even mentioned the name Manny Liddy, Ewan McKinley and Harrison Ram when I saw in the last game. But how do you feel with those sick ball played last year? Cochrane, Jesus Christ.
More positive than negative. I was about to mention Cochrane. I thought he looked unbelievable when he played. I saw him and I was like, this guy's going to be a real player. Hopefully he stays healthy, and if he does, I think he'll be a real factor for Port Adelaide going forward. Maurice won the Gavin Wanganeen Award at Best and Fairest Night for Best Young Player, and I thought that was deserved. He was great. Had a real impact as a sub multiple times. And then, like I said, I thought Berry really built into the year. Needed the stint in the SANFL. He's probably still probably 2 years away, I'd guess. Like, I don't think he's going to come in next year and set the world alight, but I think there's definitely a lot to build on. And Whitlock's similar. He'll probably need 2 more pre-seasons to fully get his body to where it needs to be. And that's going to be the criticism of him until that change fully happens. But if he turns into, it's easier said than done, but if he turns into Riley Thilthorpe and gets a huge rig and goes out there and is stronger than everyone, then he's just going to be an absolute monster. So, yeah, again, more positive than negative. I think there's a lot to build on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's probably the one highlight of the year, and watching that last game and seeing all those guys run around there in Boak's last game. And while, you know, Harrison Ram maybe struggled a little bit against Ben King, he also battled well, and you could see at least like the
I thought he did much better than what I thought he would. Like, it's a big first game. Ben King,
exactly.
like, fucking have fun, Harrison. Like, so yeah, I thought I came way impressed with him as well, actually.
Yeah, he battled well. Like, he's just thrown into his first AFL game against Ben King. And we didn't even mention it before. This is a Gold Coast team that were battling. We did, but battling. I think it's important context every time you bring up this discussion. Is this Gold Coast team had things to play for. It's not like the Travis Boak Megabowl was a nothing game for the other team. They had many things to play for. So all those players that came in and played like that played really, really well. Do you have any just before we get to just announcing our end of season awards quickly and then wrapping this one up so Eddie can hopefully get to bed by 11 his time? Do you have any more thoughts on the season, like closing thoughts, Eddie? I'll give the stage to you. Just give you closing thoughts before we get to our awards.
Disappointing season, but the pain made the last game feel so much more special. And honestly, I will remember that game more than almost any other Port game I've watched in my life. So maybe that is the silver lining of this season, where it just made that game feel so monumental and that moment so special. So that'll be what I remember from this season. I think that's always a good thing to do when you reflect back on a year. What's the one thing that's first going to come to mind? And Ken and Boakey, that image of them walking off will just always be in my head when I first think of this season. So, look, yeah, again, disappointing, but I guess that last moment made it worth it.
Yeah, no. Okay. You don't need to hear me again and just start getting hyperbolic about that game. Jamie, your last thoughts on the 2025 year before we close off and get to the awards.
I'm glad it's finished.
Yeah, it's
I agree wholeheartedly with the sentiment in regards to the last game, though. It made the pain all worth it. But I'm glad it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weekend at Bernie's for most of the second half of the season. So, yeah.
Weekend at Donny's last weekend. Anyway, let's get to do you want to get to the awards, guys? Let's get to the awards.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, let's use some stings for last time this year. We'll go to the Wilson Gray Award first.
Down, Gray doing brilliantly, getting through to Monfries. That's Gray at his best.
Wilson kicks hard and kicks Crawley.
Alrighty, the Wilson Gray Award. It's a reminder for anyone that's listening new, and thank you and welcome if you are a new listener. The Wilson Gray Award is an award designed to award plays on the field that are outside of goal scoring opportunities that epitomise the spirit of football, the essence of football, tackles, big marks, moments that just epitomise like good team, like sacrificing plays. And we had a good section of finalists this year, but I think the winner from the last round this year really kind of just stood out. And maybe, look, Jamie mentioned when we're doing the review, like maybe it could be recency bias, but I think when we watch this one again, there's no way you can deny this one. Let's have a look.
Maybe the game.
Like, there was no other choice after the last round. I was like, I remember when I saw that, I was just like, that's fucking winning the year. How do you feel about that one, Eddie, watching that one again?
No, right pick. 100%. Unbelievable moment. And just just how fucking good was Robbie Gray? I know it's completely off topic, but fuck me, he was such a good footballer.
yeah. Well, yeah, agree.
That is like the question. How good was Robbie Gray? How fucking good was Robbie Gray? Is never off topic, by the way.
Such a
We
legend.
could be here
Just
for another little while.
the comfort I had when
Yeah.
he had the ball in his hands late in games just never felt safer. Oh, I miss him a lot.
Yeah,
likewise.
that's the meme like a week or so ago when there was like the Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce like fucking marriage proposal thing coming out, and I was like, and there was some memes coming out about like who you are with the like when they're hugging each other, and I was like, the first thought that came to mind was like, what can I do with Port Adelaide? And I was like, immediately I was like, Rob Gray, third quarter versus the Crows, 5 goals. It's like that's me. Like when I'm looking. If I'm Taylor Swift looking into Travis Kelce's eyes, I'm seeing Robbie Gray's goals. So, no, absolutely spot on, Eddie. Happy with that one, Jamie? I'm sure you are.
Yeah, that's where I laid my vote. There were some great moments for consideration, but I think recency bias does come into it, but I still think the right moment won.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. It was as soon as it happened and I saw it on the night, I was just like, that's going to be my vote for the night, and that's going to be my vote for the year. And the people agreed as well. Let's get to our goal of the year. Sting time, one more time for 2025.
Monfries has kicked a goal. Unbelievable. Haven't seen anything like that. It's gone a great agent.
Flashpoint, Stevie Motlop, what a time! He is floating on air now!
God, speaking of that Stevie Motlop one, I was on the hill for that goal and got showered in so much beer and Jack and Coke and whatever. And like that's like I hadn't felt that moment until the Travis Boak game that we just witnessed. So that was like what cool about that is like Stevie Motlop, what a time, like marries up with Travis Boak Megabowl, and it's great. Goal of the year. I'm going to be honest. I'm not surprised by it, but I'll play it and I will see your thoughts.
The thump out was allowed. Whitlock. Rioli threads it through. Lukosius, Chapman, Lukosius. Little knockdown was clever. Ducks out of one. Oh, he faked him. He mesmerised them all. Jack Lukosius.
What a clever feint, this little handball to go to the inside. Is if he meant it, he might have just gone, no, I'll keep it in. I've seen him kick some amazing goals from downtown, set shots that I thought, gee, that's wonderful skill. That's the best goal in play I've seen.
I kept that little bit running a little bit longer because I love the Dermot commentary there, like just talking about like just some extended stuff on Jack Lukosius, being like, that's it felt like the first time that Derm realized Jack Lukosius could move apart from being like a fucking just a lead up forward.
Great
That's the first time I realized as well, to be honest.
Yeah. There you go. I mean, that's the thing. That's what I found surprising. Like my personal vote went to the SPP goal against Richmond earlier this in the round 2 this year. He's basically looking at Memorial Drive and hooks back through from the pocket somehow.
Some good representation from the voters for that one. It was a great goal.
And I thought the Jason Horne-Francis one against West Coast where he nutmegged. I can't remember. Yeah, that was very close to mine as well. As well, I was surprised at the Lukosius one, but I'm also impressed that Port fans, despite maybe a lot of trepidation about Jack Lukosius, still I try to be optimistic and glass half full. I'm hoping, and these little signs of Jack Lukosius.
I saw you tweet that you thought the Houston trade was a win. Was that serious or?
I've been doing that as a little bit of hyperbole this year, like because I just want to be.
Shit year.
It's more me being like Houston's assistant quarterback stuff. I'm just.
Well, I think that's true. I actually think he's assistant quarterback, but when used properly, he can be Brock Purdy taking you to the Super Bowl. Like the Pies just haven't used him. They haven't used him properly at all this year. So I actually don't disagree with the assistant quarterback part, but I think he'd be a very, very good one. Anyway, I think if Collingwood traded Houston now, they could get a first round pick for him, but Port couldn't fucking do that. So
Yeah, good. You are correct. It is. I think in that tweet I also said it was somewhat hyperbolic, but
you did. I just wanted to bring it up and clarify.
Yeah, no, I love that. I am I try to be a little bit facetious and hyperbolic around Port players because I'm like I'm biased around Port players. So as soon as Houston's not a Port player and we bring Lukosius and Richards in, I'm like, yes, they're my boys, and I will ride for them until I die. But yeah, how do you feel about? I mean, Eddie first. That Lukosius goal wins the vote for the goal of the year. It's a very very good one. There's a lot going on there. He does a lot of work.
Very solid goal.
Yeah,
deserving. I would have picked Jason Horne-Francis. I thought his goal against the Eagles was unreal, but your listeners decided Lukosius, and I can't argue too hard. It was a very very nice goal. His best moment as a Port player.
Hopefully it will be relegated to the distance with many more good moments coming forward.
Yep.
But yeah, Jamie, how do you feel about that one? A little bit of recency there as well.
Yeah, that was my vote. Yeah, that's where I live. So I'm obviously happy. Yeah, no, well, I just it kind of had everything with its deception, and Jace's goal against West Coast was phenomenal, and just like getting it and slapping it on the boot and the angle that it was at. But it should have been fucking stopped. Like, yeah, it's still a goal. It's still a great goal. I can't believe it nutmegged the bloke. But yeah, no, happy with Jack Lukosius, and yeah, obviously hope for many more of them and the set shot goals that Derm referred to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he swung a few nice ones in against Brisbane earlier in the year, which was really really nice. But I think a worthy winner, but I was a little bit surprised as well. I was wondering what like the Port fans would think about Jack Lukosius winning goal of the year, but like apparently it truly was a democratic vote based on what they thought was the most aesthetically pleasing. All right, I'm going to play this sting once more this year, and I might re-record it over the off season because I'm sick of hearing my own voice try to do this old timey thing. But I'm about to announce our player of the year. Now it's time for the CREEDCAST Player of the Year voting. It's my voice cracking in the middle there that really does my dick in. Before I announce our top 10 here, and I will announce our Player of the Year, Eddie first, who I mean, it's probably a little bit obvious based on some of the voting that's gone on in other competitions, but who would you just based on what you've seen this year, who is your Player of the Year?
Zach Butters. Not really a debate, I don't think. He is clearly Port Adelaide's best player and probably will be for the next few years if he decides to stay.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Jamie, I mean, I know you've been involved in the voting process, but you haven't seen the votes as they've gone across the year. So where do you think this lands?
Yeah, same. And just as a side note, hopefully it doesn't open up Pandora's box, but robbed of a All-Australian first team selection.
Yeah, I thought on that, but we can maybe if we have a couple of minutes here in the end, I'll announce. I'll read out. I'm going to go for the top 10. So 10th, Sam Pepper was 25 votes after the season. Obviously cut short as well. There's a lot of players that were cut short this year, so that did happen. But so Sam Pepper at 10th. Two players finished on 26 votes, which was Travis Boak and Aliir. One, Travis Boak finishing in the top 10 in his 19th season, which is fantastic. And Aliir starting the year in an All-Australian form and then finishing the year on one leg. I think that's a really, really nice result for him. He featured a lot, often with the way we do our votes in ones and twos, but I think he did have a best on ground or top two at one point in a year as well. So he just features regularly and is a great servant as Aliir. In 8th, Jordan Sweet, 27 votes. Really impressed with him, particularly with the fact he had an indifferent middle period of the year where he got dropped. But I think his rebound from that dropping was really, really impressive to see the mental fortitude that Jordan Sweet has, and he rebounded back for a pretty strong end of the year, I think. In 7th was Kane Farrell with 29 votes. I was actually surprised when I did that count back because I was like, there was moments in the year I was like, oh, Kane Farrell could have been bad, but there was moments in the year where he did have pretty good games, so it probably makes sense. He ends up in 7th. In 6th, and maybe assigned a point of difference to our voting with the the coaches. Mitch Georgiades is in 6th with 36 votes. I think that's mostly my fault. There's when I was going back through the count back, there's a lot of weeks where Jamie was higher than me, and the entire reason I dropped off a couple of votes is often because he kicked like 3 goals for or something, or like whatever. Like he should have kicked 2. That's why I'm dropping him down. But then the top players are often taking those votes as well. So there was part of that. But Mitch Georgiades in 6. In 5th was Miles Bergman / Bradley Beal with 39 votes. He had a few really, really standout games that probably helped him get up there. So Bradley Beal with 39 votes, 39 points in the votes. In 4th, and to your point, Eddie, earlier, when you were talking about players that should be in the top 4, Jason Horne-Francis finished on 42 votes for us. Well, a lot of the time, I think I had him up there more when I did the count back. I love Jason Horne-Francis. I am. Side note: I'm a card collector, and I look for a lot of Jason Horne-Francis cards. That's my boy. He's my boy. Boo. Ollie Wines finished. Ollie Wines finished in 3rd with 65 votes, which I think is something that has been a theme of the podcast for us. We love Ollie Wines over the last 2 years, how he's bounced back after a couple of years with in different preseasons. Ollie Wines has been the unsung hero of this side of the last couple of years, and he finished on 65 points. I think is quite impressive. And he finishes in 3rd. The top 2 are far and far away, like really, really far away from the rest. A lot different than last year. We had a pretty even top 4, I think, last year, but this year it's very, very second place votes more almost double what Ollie Wines is on. Connor Rozee finishes in 2nd with 126. He led the way when I was doing the count back for about 3/4 or 4/5 of the season, and Zach Butters just took him over in the last couple of weeks. Zach Butters is the CREEDCAST Player of the Year this year with 142 of our votes. He just stormed home. But to the point about Connor Rozee, and I'll hand it over to you guys in a second, I think Connor Rozee's get some unfair criticism based on the fact he's captain, and just some people just don't like his playing style. I think I don't know what it is, but I think he's had a very, very good year considering he's been asked to play some different roles, and he's just done it with aplomb and done some great things and shown some flexibility for the coaching coming forward. But Zach is the deserved Player of the Year as well. Eddie first, obviously exactly what you expected, but Connor Rozee in 2nd. I guess that's probably a question without notice. Connor Rozee gets some criticism this year at times, but I just think he gets such a bad rap from some people. Both, I think it's mostly outside of Port Adelaide. They just don't respect him as a captain enough. But I think he's played a really, really good role this year. I mean, him winning the showdown medal in a losing showdown, I think kind of speaks to that in little ways.
Yeah, I don't think he's a very vocal captain. So I think people see that and they kind of think, oh, he can't lead. But I don't hear anything but praise from inside Port Adelaide. Like, all his teammates seem to love him. And, when there's criticism, they always seem to stand with him. The coaches chose him for a reason. So I don't have any reason to criticize him as captain. I think he goes about it in a non-traditional way, but it's seemed to work, I think. No one's turned against him, and doesn't seem there's been any conversation with Josh Carr taking over to remove the captaincy off of him and put it on Zach. So, deserved to be at 2. I think Aliyah's a bit stiff, that low. And again, you've touched on it there, gave the reasons, but I thought Georgiades was stiff as well.
Yeah. I was at the count back and I was like, I feel bad about how this has turned out, but I think that speaks to kind of like how the voting process works, and I have some ideas for next year to not overhaul it, but just add some different voices into it. So but Jamie, how are you feeling about that count?
Yeah, look, the top was a fait accompli, and the rest are just making up the numbers. So it was interesting. I've got the best and fairest leaderboard up here. I was looking at it while you're reading it out, and certainly some differences there. We put our premium on contested possessions, and
there wasn't many of them. So
and Wines generally finds himself high up in that number. So I reckon that contributed to his higher standing in comparison to the official best and fairest. But hey, yeah, this is you mentioned last year having a much more even top four, Dave, and largely due to the fact that we had a lot of players playing a lot of games and playing well or playing better than this season. So on Connor Rosie, just before I finish, I obviously love him. We go through the stats every week. If he's in the midfield, it's pressure act numbers and tackling. And then, his move to halfback, had he not gotten injured, I think he would have been a good looking for a All-Australian, at least second team, if not first team halfback line.
Yeah, no, agreed. I actually think Connor Rosie had a really nice year considering the way he's moved around. I thought I'd just throw a little barb out there that would just be for your point. You can tell Chad this one, Eddie. Joe Richards was in 14th on 7 votes, so very
you guys are with
the. It's funny because I love Joe Richards.
All the while we loved his season.
Yeah,
I've never ever said I didn't like him.
Exactly, but he's not worth. He's not worth 4th in the votes, is he?
He acts like Joe Richards is just the savior that Port Adelaide's been yearning for, and I hope he is on that same wavelength. Same. I hope he proves me wrong, but I haven't seen enough yet.
Yeah, no, we've actually praised Joe Richards basically the entire year because I don't think we knew much what to expect, and he's been mainly due to, I mean, to your point, you made the point earlier as well, like his effort and everything is undeniable. So all those things were things we enjoyed. So yeah, but he's still. When I was counting back, I was like, he's in 7th, and I was 14th with 7 points. I was like, the Port Adelaide best and fairest had him 4th. So I was just like, what have we missed? But yeah, we're not alone, and maybe at least as anyway. That's about it for tonight, though. Eddie, any closing thoughts on the year and what you're expecting going forward? We really appreciate you having you on. Plug anything you have. Let me know. Let the world know what you've got going on. The floor is yours.
Eddy Cornes show every Sunday is the main thing at the moment. 9:30 to 10:30 on SENSA. That's Adelaide time. If you disagree with anything I said on this podcast, 1300-736-736, call in and we can debate about Bradley Beale and Joe Richards. I'm all for it. So I look forward to getting your calls. And so that's the main thing. Podcast is just, having a little bit of a break, but we'll be back as soon as the NFL season starts to kick off. And so if you want all my footy takes, you can hear them on Sunday, and then subscribe to the Eddy Cornes podcast, and I'll be back on that very soon with some more American sports stuff and a little bit of the footy off season. Yeah,
love your American sports takes as well. And we're not going to get to any of them tonight, but look forward to chatting about them with you at some point in the future as well. Jamie, you and I are obviously going to continue into this season with the AFLW, but this is the last time we're going to be talking about the AFL men's beyond getting to when a draft and free agency trades, whatever player movements come on. Your last point to say anything you have on the 2025 season.
Firstly, I just want to thank Eddie again for joining us. It's obviously quite difficult for us to get guests to come on, mostly due to how much talking that we do, just the two of us. Adding anyone else to our regular show would just be ridiculous in terms of length. We push the boundaries as it is. So thanks Eddie again to round off our year. Also, thank you to everyone listening, watching, however they consume us. It's been great. We've loved doing this for a second year as a duo, and only have more that we want to do into the future and build the community and be a voice for the Port Adelaide fan. Thanks again. Appreciate it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to you, Jamie, as always. Love doing this with you every week. And obviously, Eddie, friend of the pod and guest of the pod a couple of times now. A massive thank you to you. That's about it for tonight. Looking forward to 2026, and I'm sure all three of us will be back together in next year, and looking forward to that. But that's it for now. I'm just going to hit our friends of the pods things and close it out. Cheers, guys.
Count the pair. Count the pair. Count the pair.
Can't fucking compare.
Thanks, guys.